Bismillah Rahman Rahim. This is Engineer Masood Akhtar Kiani, and today we have the technical session number 88. So, before going ahead, I would like to request you to press the bell icon, subscribe it, like it, share it in order to reach the next video with easy access. So, today we have uh, our subject is the construction giants. So we will discuss about the construction and detail of the construction giants and when it are required and what is the material and how it is feasible for the construction. A construction joint is the interface between concrete placement internationally created, concrete placement between the international created to facilitate the construction. A cold joint is a joint of or discontinuity resulting from in the displacement of sufficient duration to produce internally and the bonding of the material where the mortar or the plaster region are met. A construction joint is a type of concrete joints that is used between new section of the concrete is poured adjacent to the another concrete section that has already set. The purpose of the construction joint is to allow the same horizontal movement while being rigid against the rotational and the vertical movements. So, what are the types of the joints in the concrete? There are three types of the joints in the concrete: construction joints, construction joint, and isolation joints. The most common are construction joints, which are controlled cracks, which is caused by the restraint, shrinkage, loads, and the other stress. The joint depth should be at least 1 by 4 of the slab thickness. Uh, where are the construction joints placed? All the construction joints should be located within the middle third of the spans of slabs, beams, and grids. So, what is the difference between the construction joints and the expansion joints? Construction joints occurs always. There are multiple concrete replacement as expansion joints are used in concrete and steel that can occur between different days of the concrete placement and expansion joints allow the concrete to or the steel to expand the contract by daily temperature variations. So what are the types of the construction joints? Construction joints are generally placed on the concrete slab and are determined the extent of the individual placement. Expansion joints are in the pavements. Construction joints in the concrete should be by the nominated by the specific materials. Then the isolation joint, then the decorative concrete joints. Uh, so, what are the buildings construction? What are the joints in the building construction? Joints in the separate provides a building construction that's components, parts of move that resist to each other. The joints are the two placements in the concretes where it's met with each other. The purpose of the construction joint is to allow the same horizontal movement while being rigid against rotational and the vertical movements. Uh, so, what are the construction joints placed in the concrete? Construction joints are surface joints where the successive placement of the concrete is to meet to the other concrete. Where this typical giants at the end of the day work, but many of the required when the concrete placement is stopped the longer than the initial setting times of the concrete, then it is the place of the giants to be established. In slab, there are many designed to permit the movements and the transfer loads. Where can construction joints be done in a concrete beam? Construction joints should be located where there will be cause of the last weakness in the strength of the structure. So the beam and the slab's construction joint shall be located within the middle third of their spans. So what are the construction joint in the column? Construction joints in the column are un- unavoidable, unavoidable uh, in multiple story reinforced concrete structure according to the ACI 224.3 or 1995 version provide with the beam of the lower story columns and the above the floor slab for upper story columns. So the construction joint in the slab are using for the bulkhead made of wood, steel, plastic, or the precast concrete. These bulkheads are often used as screed rails during placement and the finishing of the slab. Construction joints are should be worked into the overall joints plans where they can be also function as a construction joints. The construction joint should be used in case of equipment's breakdowns uh, and unexpected storage of material and the bad weather, although the joint should be worked into the joint pattern where the construction joints are planned in accordance to the approved shop drawing. Uh, there is not no possible to that the old section may be later to be is removed, but this should be approved and followed by the senior engineer's decision. If the slab will also no significant traffic crossing of the joints, the plan, but the joint of the reinforcement crossing is acceptable. If there is two traffic or the other than the foot traffics, uh, then it is need to use some of the load transfer device. So for many years, the typical may be the transfer of the shear load. The construction joints was a guide joints. Many steel bulkheads forms are available with the guide profile. However, mostly experts no longer recommended guide joints since they seldom may be tight enough to provide the positive shear transfer in accordance to the ACI 360. Design of slab on ground status that the male and the female components lose contact when the joints open due to the drying shrinkage, which can be led to breakdown of the joints edges and the failure of the top sides position of the key. Use the international vibration during the concrete placement at the construction joints and to assure properly consolidation and the edge of the uh, dowels, load transfer devices, or armored joints assemblies, especially if the concrete has longer top size aggregate. Be sure that the curing of the vertical face after removal of the bulkhead by applying the load during the curing compound. So, what are the material to use for the joints? Uh, Joints and the structural material are specially used of materials such as stainless steel. The material allow for the restricted range of the motion within the structure while keeping it uh, intact and under the control. Other materials include rubber expansion joints made from the rubber and the bentonite strip, also the made of the concrete and the elastomeric materials. So, what are the giant filler in construction? Expansion giant filler is a term used in the described of the group of the weatherproofing products intended to use as a aesthetic or the functional expansion giant sealer agents in gap in the concrete slabs, walkways, decks, bridges, and the sidewalkways of, for instance. So there are many materials for the expansion giants depend upon the specification and the mm, depend upon the uh, standard relevant standards and local codes of the buildings. So all of this should be required in accordance to the shop drawing approved and the material recommendation specific in the uh, project's requirements. So this was the briefing about the construction giants, and in next subject we will see each other with another subject. Thank you very much and have a nice day.